So, who actually did it? That's the question every FNAF fan has had since August 2014, and while we've believed it was solved for just a few months later, everyone's favorite book the week before continues to cause confusion for the community. So, let's look at all the facts. During Five Nights at Freddy's 1, we're told that the animatronics used to be able to move around during the day, until the bite of 87. This suggests that the animatronic who did it was walking around at the location, hence why the mechanic was removed from the animatronics. FNAF 2 would pick up in 1987 and presumably solve who did it. The phone calls throughout the night would make mention of a new fluid movement the animatronic characters were capable of doing. The thing is, the game suggests the opposite, as we would see two mini-games, both Take Cake, which depicts Freddy walking around, and Foxy Go Go Go, which depicts Foxy running in the building. Despite this, Phone Guy's comments aren't wrong, as FNAF 3 would clarify the animatronics were built to follow sound feed, even as far back as the spring-lock suits. However, the Silver Eyes would clarify that they were being piloted by the employees using control panels under the stage, which William would take advantage of during the Twisted ones to control the Twisted animatronics. The toys are the only characters capable of moving by their own will, without an employee piloting them. As the week continued, Ralph would make mention of the animatronics getting more and more angry towards adults as the week went on, until Jeremy would be switched to the day shift, where Ralph would warn him to stay near the animatronics to make sure they don't attack anyone, and the rest is infamous. One of the toys bit Jeremy, causing the bite of 87. I mean, we're told the toys are being scrapped and the location is closing. Except that's a lie. Not an intentional one, but a lie that's been stained into the community for years, that no one was able to see through. That is, until I found it. In order to understand what I mean, pull up a calendar of November 1987. We know we receive our paycheck on November 12th, and our overtime on November 13th. Jeremy is put to the day shift, hence why we see that newspaper, right? And then Fritz works the next night, after the bite. I understand the confusion, but each night isn't referring to the night, it's referring to 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., meaning that the shift Jeremy was on was 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. on November 13th. He's told he will work tomorrow, not later that day, as in he will work the day of November 14th, meaning Fritz's shift is before the bite of 87. The reason why this is important is because of structured storytelling. Scott placed the newspaper on November 13th before Fritz's shift, meaning the bite has not happened yet. To spell it out for you, Freddy's was never closed because of the bite of 87, which we were told in the phone calls, if you actually listened. The location was set to close due to a mixture of both the DCI rumors and the animatronics misbehaving, long before the bite of 87. And to add insult to injury, the week before would mention how the employees started using tips to prevent the animatronics from attacking them, not to mention Ralph being told he managed to get Employee of the Month because of it, all suggesting that despite being considered closed, Freddy's continued to operate for at least a month. Before you accuse this of being a retcon, the newspaper simply suggests that they were planning on closing, not that it ever officially closed. This means despite the bite, Freddy's continued to operate presumably with the same damn animatronic who did the bite regardless. Uniquely, the tip the employees were all sharing around was shining a bright light in the animatronic's eyes, and while this does work on the other animatronics, it just seems strange they weren't using the Freddy mask method instead, considering how superior it is against the rest of the animatronics, whereas a flash temporarily freezes them. In fact, the main person affected with that glitch would be Withered Foxy, which is strange considering the Withereds can't move around during the day, right? Weird question, if it was a toy who did the bite of 87, why did the classics get restricted movement? After all, they weren't capable of moving around during the day, so what would be the point in removing their ability to do so? I mean, in order to remove a feature, they would have to have it to begin with. And considering the toys misbehave during the day, why would the Withers magically not be capable of doing so? Not to mention, why would Fritz be fired for tampering with the animatronics after the company had been dealing with these malfunctions for weeks? Shouldn't they fire the engineers? After all, they're the ones that couldn't fix the issue. Unless the animatronic who Fritz accidentally tampered with wasn't one that the engineers were trying to fix. An animatronic we know is fidgety, as shown by all of his depictions. Hell, even the name Fritz, meaning something malfunctioning, which would go on to be the chosen name of the child possessing not Mangle, not Toy Chica, not any of the other candidates, but Foxy. If you watched my videos for a while, you know I have a principle I like to follow as often as possible, known as chronological solvability. Despite being grammatically incorrect, that means to be able to solve questions within the post material that it's introduced in. After all, why ask a question that's unsolvable by the community, especially considering Five Nights at Freddy's 1 was never intended to have a sequel, let alone a whole series. It was its own single story, so all of its answers has to be solved in that story. Everywhere you look throughout the series, there has been one character that consistently is associated with a bite or heads in almost every single appearance. It's not Mangle, who throughout the series has never been associated with heads nor bites. In fact, for such a solid answer, Scott sure is allergic to confirming that to be the fact, considering not once in the series has he alluded to Mangle being the bite once. Every piece of evidence that has been going for them being the biter is stolen from every other character in the series. They were chosen by circumstance, a mass confusion in the community that no one at the time was capable of putting to bed. But with the week before, we can finally put that idea to an end by confirming the biter is Withered Foxy. Why aren't the Withered scrapped? See, back in the beginning of the video, where we covered how the location didn't close because of the bite, nor were the toys being scrapped because of the bite, not even mentioning how weak of an argument it is, as Fazbear Entertainment could simply tell the public they switched out the machine with a non-malfunctioning one, and they can't really argue. After all, when the location reopens in the week before, Foxy is out of order the entire time, has no spare parts to repair him, and isn't used once at the new location. Which, to Fazbear Entertainment, a bunch of cheapskates who was in deep shit from the toys acting weird, only scrapped them to fix the Withereds, and programmed out their ability to move around during the day. So don't pull that, but it was a big event, why wouldn't they scrap him, when Fredbear gets off scot-free excluding a slight redesign, and arguably Fredbear's doesn't even shut down because of the event. Rather, they either continue operating until Charlie's death, or rebrand and remain operating until Charlie's death. And for being so infamous, they sure don't mention it in Fazbear Frights one bit. More so, it seems like an over-exaggeration from press and staff, and in reality wouldn't be as infamous as they claim. I mean, the place was officially open for 2 weeks, so not many people were having their childhood ruined over it. And to cover your other questions, Jeremy was told to stay near the animatronics, not specifically which ones. If he was, he wouldn't have noticed if any other animatronic made its way into the room. The location was only open for birthday parties, which means they took place in the party rooms, and Mangle was programmed to stay in Kids Cove during the day, as they were left for the toddlers to play with, and would not be dragged to the party rooms, not be in any condition to perform regardless, let alone doesn't walk once in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, rather crawls to all locations. So if you're willing to believe that she was capable of doing so, you have to be willing to consider that a Wither who can walk is capable of getting into the room. And Foxy Go Go Go, which people only deem useful to show the MCI, is complete bullshit. I don't care what the baseless arguments you make, there is nothing excusing or suggesting its only purpose in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is to confirm another set of kids existing. That should be pretty obvious from the other minigames. No, this game is important because it spoiled the reason for the bite from the very beginning. The point is, this minigame is to explain why Foxy is unaffected by the mask, as back in 85, he would run into the party rooms until he would notice the MCI, which started possessing the location, and we're told flashing animatronics resets them, which would make Foxy follow his programming and run to a party room, where Jeremy was. Stop being stubborn and annoying that you were wrong, and I'll see you guys again soon. Matane.